A U.S. congressman asked a very simple question during this hearing, and the State Department couldn't give a clear answer. Democratic Congressman Brad Schneider opened by honoring 6 American service members who lost their lives in the current conflict involving Iran. Then he turned to something urgent. How is the U.S. helping Americans get out of the region safely?
In that, I will recognize Representative Schneider.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The United States is at war. Operation Epic Fury is now in its 6th day. American troops are putting their lives on the line, and as President Trump and Secretary Hegseth have repeatedly said, some will die. So far, 6 American service members have made the ultimate sacrifice, and I think it's important to remember every fallen hero, so I'll repeat their names again here. Major Jeffrey R. O'Brien of Indianola, Iowa. Chief Warrant Officer 3, Robert Marzon of Sacramento, California. Captain Cody A. Cork of Winter Haven, Florida. Sergeant First Class Noah Tatjans of Bellevue, Nebraska. Sergeant First Class Nicole Armour of White Bear Lake, Minnesota. And Sergeant Declan Cody of West Des Moines, Iowa. Declan was a student at Drake University. My dear friend David Goulder is on the board of Drake, and he posted words of wisdom this morning in remembering Declan. And he said, quote, "In moments like these, we must all come together to show much needed love and compassion for the Cody family," end quote. And I will extend that to all of the families. May their memories be a blessing. And I say we should all be praying for the success of all our men and women defending our nation in Iran and around the world, and their safe return home to their families and communities. There is no doubt that for 47 years, Iran's evil regime has been a threat to U.S. interests and American safety at home and abroad. I think we can all agree that we must never let Iran have a nuclear weapon. We must defeat Iran's ballistic missile program, thwart Iran's sponsorship of terrorism as the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world, and support the Iranian people as they strive to throw off the oppressive yoke of this regime. Here's the thing. None of that's going to be easy, which is why I think our founders smartly gave only Congress the power to take our nation to war. I would also argue that it will be infinitely harder to achieve our long-term goals without the sustained support of the American people. Yet the President and this administration in general have yet to coherently and consistently explain exactly why we are embroiled in another war. I also believe we increase our likelihood of success in confronting Iran's threats working with our allies and gaining the support of their populations, which of course is your remit. Public diplomacy is critical, especially at this moment, especially as the war spreads to allied nations, and especially as the President calls on the Iranian people to rise up. But because of cuts in your department, we are not fully capable or able to communicate with the Iranian people or our allies. The questions before us is whether the Bureau responsible for telling America's story to the world, for countering adversary propaganda, for running the exchange programs and people-to-people ties that give the United States lasting influence, is equipped to do its job at this moment. The Global Engagement Center, our counter-disinformation capability, expired and was not reauthorized in December 2024. Its successor was shuttered in April. USAGM, including the Voice of America and Radio Farda, our primary channels to the Iranian people, has been gutted from over 1,300 staff to barely 80. The administration proposed cutting exchange programs from $741 million to $50 million. Congress rejected that and appropriated $667 million because these programs work. But the FY25 grant process was delayed for months, and these programs are still pending. Undersecretary Rogers, I have great sympathy for your position. It has to be difficult communicating U.S. policy to the world when resources are so badly depleted and the messaging coming from the President, from Secretary Rubio, from Secretary Hegseth, and other administration officials changes by the minute. Last June, President Trump said Iran's nuclear program was obliterated. Yet a few days ago, Mr. Witkoff said Iran was 2 weeks from a nuclear weapon. The President said on March 3rd that Iran was about to attack, but on March 2nd, Secretary Rubio said that the U.S. was acting out of concern of a retaliatory attack after Israel would strike Iran. The President said that this war was about Iran's ICBM program with missiles targeting the United States, but ABC reports that U.S. intelligence believes Iran is years away from that capability. The bottom line is that Congress and the American people deserve full answers to several basic questions. Why are we at war? What are the goals of this war? What's the strategy for achieving these goals? And what is the end game? With my little bit of time left, you cited earlier numbers of American citizens who have evacuated from this region. Earlier this week, the State Department put out a notice to immediately leave 14 countries by commercial means, ignoring the fact that virtually all commercial flights have been canceled. Yesterday, the State Department posted on its website from, quote, the office of the spokesman, end quote, that one charter flight brought U.S. citizens out of the region. Undersecretary, how many flights has the U.S. Department arranged, either chartered or military, to evacuate U.S. citizens stranded by this war?
So that's a great question, and it varies minute to minute. So I'd have to have my office get you updated information. What I can tell you is that
So let's take 24 hours ago.
In a
24
fluid,
hours ago, what was the
evolving, and
number?
life-threatening situation, the fact that the administration doesn't speak in unified media top lines but gives you varied information, it shows that we're being honest, which is what we have to do to
answer my
rebuild
question.
trust in the
I'm
wake of the
asking you a
global
question.
engagement
How
center.
many flights have been arranged by the State Department?
I am telling you that I don't have that information because the situation is fluid and rapidly evolving. I
was it
read
yesterday?
some statistics into the record earlier,
submit these
but
questions
those were
for
the
writing and
statistics.
ask for a
Those were the
complete answer.
statistics as of this morning. I don't have the statistics now.
So it's one.
The gentleman's time has expired.
According to Schneider, the United States is now deeply involved in a growing conflict involving Iran. He started by honoring 6 American service members who had already lost their lives in the operation. Schneider read each name aloud, reminding the room and the country that behind every policy debate are real people, real families, and real sacrifices. It was a solemn moment before the questioning turned to something urgent. Schneider then shifted to the broader issue. What exactly is the strategy here? He pointed out that Congress and the American people still don't have clear answers to some very basic questions. Why are we at war? What are the actual goals? What's the strategy for achieving them? And maybe most importantly, what is the end game? Those questions matter because, as Schneider reminded everyone, the Constitution gives Congress, not the president alone, the power to take the nation to war. And without clear communication, public trust starts to erode. But then Schneider turned to something even more immediate. The United States Department of State had issued a warning telling Americans across 14 countries in the region to leave immediately. On paper, that might sound straightforward. But Schneider pointed out a major reality on the ground. Because of the conflict, most commercial flights in the region had already been canceled. So Americans trying to follow the government's advice suddenly found themselves asking a very practical question. How exactly are we supposed to leave? That's when Schneider asked the official testifying that day a direct question. Schneider asked, how many evacuation flights has the State Department actually organized to get American citizens out of the region? Not a complicated policy question, just a basic operational one. How many flights? The official responded by saying the situation was fluid and changing minute by minute. He explained that the department would need to provide updated information later. But Schneider pressed again, because when Americans are stranded in a war zone, we'll get back to you isn't exactly reassuring. So, the question came again. How many flights have been arranged? And eventually, after several attempts to move around the question, an answer finally came out. Now, to be fair, situations like this can change quickly during a conflict. Evacuation logistics are complicated. Governments often rely on a mix of commercial travel, military assistance, and coordination with allies. But Schneider's point was about transparency and preparation. If the government is telling Americans to leave an entire region immediately, people want to know that there is an actual plan to help them do that. Otherwise, the warning can start to feel more like a disclaimer than a solution. This moment also shows why congressional oversight hearings exist in the first place. Members of Congress aren't just debating policy. They're asking the questions millions of Americans might ask themselves. Are we prepared? Is there a clear strategy? And are Americans abroad being protected when crises unfold? In moments of war and uncertainty, those answers matter more than ever. And that's why exchanges like this one tend to get so much attention. Because sometimes the most revealing moments in Washington come from the simplest questions. And whether people agree with the policy or not, everyone wants to know that someone is asking them.